3 years after the verdict watched by millions, Alex Murdaugh will get a new trial. Today, the South Carolina Supreme Court overturned his murder convictions. In 2023, the disbarred attorney was convicted of shooting and killing his wife and son. This case received massive nationwide attention and spawned series on Netflix and Hulu, as well as countless podcasts.
Maggie Murdaugh texted her friend on the evening of June 7th, 2021, and said her husband sounded fishy and was up to something. She didn't know what. She just knew something felt off. She got in her car anyway, drove to their hunting estate, and walked toward the dog kennels to find her son, Paul. She never walked back out. By 10:07 that night, her husband, Alex, was on the phone with 911, voice cracking, telling dispatchers he had come home to find his wife and son shot dead on the ground. "I've been up to it. It's bad," he told them. Neither one of them is moving. And just like that, one of the most powerful families in South Carolina was never going to be the same again. Before we get into it, if you're new here, hit that like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss a Crime Files upload. We go deep on the cases that matter, and trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next in this one. Now, let's talk about Alex Murdaugh. Because to understand what happened on that property, you have to understand the world this man came from, and the world he had secretly built inside of it. The Murdaugh family wasn't just rich. They were royalty in South Carolina's Low Country. For 86 consecutive years, from 1920 all the way to 2006, a Murdaugh served as the elected solicitor, the chief prosecutor for the 14th Judicial Circuit. That's one family controlling the top law enforcement position across 5 counties for nearly a century. Locals didn't just know the name. They call the entire region Murdaugh country. That tells you everything about the kind of power this family held. Alex was the 4th generation. His great-grandfather, his grandfather, his father, all solicitors. All dominant figures in the legal world of South Carolina. Alex himself became a partner at the family's personal injury law firm, known locally as PMPED. He was winning massive settlements, shaking hands with judges, moving through courtrooms like he owned them, because in many ways his family did. And Maggie met Alex at the University of South Carolina, where she graduated in 1991. By every account, she was warm, devoted to her boys, and deeply tied to the life they had built together. They had 2 sons, Buster, the older one, and Paul, their youngest. They own a 1,700-acre hunting estate in Culleton County called Moselle. Land, dogs, horses, open sky. The kind of property most people only see in movies. From the outside, it looked like the perfect Southern American dream. But the dream had been rotting from the inside for 20 years, and nobody knew it yet. Here's where the story shifts. Because Alex Murdaugh had a secret, and it wasn't a small one. In the early 2000s, following knee surgery, Alex became addicted to oxycodone. And to feed that addiction, he started stealing, not pocket change. He stole from his own clients, people who had come to him in their most broken moments. A man who became a quadriplegic after a car crash, a state trooper injured on the job, a trust fund set up for children whose parents had been killed in a wreck. These people placed their pain and their hope in Alex Murdaugh's hands, and he took their money. He set up fake accounts. He juggled checks. He moved money from one place to another in a pattern so complex it took investigators years to untangle. The federal judge who eventually sentenced him said it plainly. No truly impaired person could pull off transactions this sophisticated for nearly 2 decades. This wasn't impulse. This was architecture. And then there was Gloria Satterfield. Gloria had worked as the Murdaugh family housekeeper for more than 20 years. She was practically family. In February 2018, she died after what was described as a trip and fall accident at the Murdaugh home. Maggie Murdaugh made the 911 call. Gloria was airlifted to a hospital, where she spent 3 weeks before passing away. Alex told her sons he would take care of them. He promised them justice. He helped them file a wrongful death claim against himself, collected over $4 million in insurance money on their behalf, and then kept every cent of it. Gloria's sons never saw a dollar. They found out a settlement had even been reached by reading a newspaper article. Their own attorney, who happened to be Alex's college roommate, had never told them. The coroner later flagged something disturbing. Gloria's manner of death had been ruled natural, which was inconsistent with the injuries you'd expect from a trip and fall. Sled eventually reopened the investigation and had her body exhumed. To this day, the full truth of how Gloria Satterfield died has never been publicly confirmed. And then came Paul. In February 2019, 19-year-old Mallory Beach went out with a group of friends that included Paul Murdaugh, who was also 19 at the time. They had been at an oyster roast. Paul was driving the family's boat when he struck a channel marker and bridge pilings in Beaufort County. Passengers were thrown into the water. Mallory Beach was killed. Her body wasn't found for a week. The coroner said she died from blunt force trauma and drowning. When hospital staff treated Paul that night, they reported he was grossly intoxicated and belligerent. His blood alcohol content was .286, more than 3 times the legal limit. He was later charged with 3 felonies. Now think about what Alex was facing by mid-2021. His son was about to go to trial for killing someone's daughter. Civil lawsuits from the Beach family had the real potential to drag his finances into open court. And at the same time, people inside his own law firm were starting to ask questions about missing money. A lot of it. On June 7th, 2021, the very day Maggie and Paul were killed, Alex's law firm confronted him about $792,000 in missing client settlement funds. That same evening, he called Maggie and asked her to meet him at Moselle. She told a friend he sounded off. She went anyway. Paul was at the kennels. Maggie walked down to find him. And sometime between 8:50 and 9:06 that night, both of them were shot dead. Paul was hit twice with a shotgun. Maggie was shot 4 or 5 times with a rifle. 2 different weapons, both of them belonging to the Murdaugh family. Here is where this case cracks wide open. Paul had been on his phone just before he died. At 8:44 p.m., he recorded a short video at the dog kennels, less than a minute long. The video was of one of their dogs, and it captured something the killer never counted on. 3 voices in the background. The voices were discussing whether the dog had a chicken or a guinea in its mouth. Investigators played that video for more than a dozen friends and family members. Every single one of them identified the 3 voices as Paul, Maggie, and Alex. Alex had told police for months that he was never at the kennels that night. He said he had been napping, then went to visit his mother, who has dementia. The caretaker at his mother's home confirmed he did visit, but said it was unusually late, and he was only there for about 15 to 20 minutes, not the 30 to 40 minutes he later claimed. The video demolished his alibi completely. And when Alex finally took the stand during his 2023 murder trial, he admitted he had been at the kennels that night. He admitted he had lied to investigators about it. He blamed his addiction for his lack of clear thinking. But prosecutors weren't buying it. They argued that GPS data from Alex's vehicle showed he drove past the spot where Maggie's phone was later found, and that he had thrown out his car window to get rid of evidence. And there was one more thing. A family shotgun that had been at Moselle for years went missing after murders and was never recovered. Maggie's DNA and blood were found on a separate rifle. Prosecutors argued both weapons used to kill Maggie and Paul were Murdaugh family guns, and that the man who best knew where they were kept was Alex. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. On March 2nd, 2023, they found Alex Murdaugh guilty on all 4 counts. As the verdict was read, Alex kept a stone face. His surviving son, Buster, wiped tears from his eyes. Alex appeared to mouth the words, "I love you," to Buster as officers placed him in handcuffs. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. But this story was not finished. 3 months after the murders, before he had even been charged for killing his family, Alex Murdaugh did something that almost defies comprehension. He conspired with a man named Curtis Eddie Smith to shoot him on the side of a road in Hampton County. The plan was simple in its desperation. Alex would die. Buster would collect a $10 million life insurance payout, and all of Alex's problems would die with him. The shot grazed his head. It wasn't fatal. And 9 days later, Alex admitted to the whole scheme. He was charged with insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and filing a false police report. The man who had called himself a victim had hired his own shooter. Then came the financial reckoning. Alex pleaded guilty to 22 counts of financial crimes in state court and was sentenced to 27 years in prison. In federal court, he pleaded guilty to money laundering, wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy, and was sentenced to 40 years. He was ordered to pay more than $8 million in restitution. At his federal sentencing, prosecutors revealed he had failed a polygraph test he agreed to as part of his plea deal, and that investigators had found 11 new financial victims and another $1.3 million in stolen money. The man who had built a career on trust had used it as a weapon against everyone who ever needed him. But then, in a twist that even the most seasoned legal observers called stunning, the South Carolina Supreme Court overturned his murder convictions on May 13, 2026. The reason? The woman managing the jury during his 2023 trial, Culleton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill, had been secretly talking to jurors outside of court proceedings. One juror, identified as Juror Z, testified that he told her to watch Alex closely when he took the stand, to watch his actions, not to be fooled by the defense, not to let them confuse her or throw her off. That same juror said Hill's comments made it feel like Alex was already guilty before the evidence was even finished. Hill had been writing a book about the trial while it was happening. Prosecutors argued she wanted a guilty verdict to sell more copies. The Supreme Court agreed, calling her conduct breathtaking, disgraceful, and unprecedented in South Carolina. In December 2025, Hill pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice, perjury, and misconduct. She was sentenced to probation and community service. Alex Murdaugh remains in prison serving his financial crime sentences, but his murder convictions are gone and a new trial is coming. So now let's sit with this for a moment, because this case raises questions that go far beyond what happened at those kennels. How does a man spend 20 years stealing from the most vulnerable people who ever trusted him, and keep smiling at family dinners, shaking hands in courtrooms, being a pillar of the community, without anyone seeing through it? Is that level of deception something a person chooses, or is it something wired into them? And if Alex really did kill Maggie and Paul, his own wife and his own child, what does that say about what family actually meant to him? Was it love, or was it a brand? Was Moselle a home, or was it a stage? And what about Maggie? She texted her friend that night and said something felt wrong. She felt it. She knew her husband well enough to sense it in his voice. But she still got in that car. What does it feel like to love someone so completely that even your own instincts aren't enough to stop you from walking toward them? And then there is a question the new trial will force back into the open. If it wasn't Alex, then who? Who else had access to that property, knew where those guns were kept, and had a reason to want both Maggie and Paul dead on the same night? This case is not over. Not even close. If this story gripped you, you already know what to do. Like this video, subscribe to Crime Files, and hit that bell icon so you are notified the moment we drop the next one. We will be following this retrial every step of the way, and when it happens, you need to be here.